Good morning, and thank you everyone for coming to our workshop. This is Visualize Your Data, getting started with Adobe. If you are here on Zoom, I just wanted to let you know that I cannot see your questions. So if you have one, could you type it into the chat and send it to everyone? And we do have moderators who are monitoring. Also, we can't hear you, so you do have to actually type it into the chat. There's no way for us to have audio. Today, we are going to talk about simple data visualizations that you can use for your classroom or professional presentations. My name is Ashley Height. I'm the Systems and Discovery Librarian here, and I'm here with my colleague, Josephine Rickman, who's the Electronic Resources and Metadata Manager, and I am going to turn it over to Joe.
Thank you, Ashley. So we are going to take you through how to create data visualizations in Adobe Express and Adobe Illustrator. But before we get started with that, we did want to take a moment and talk about accessibility. It'll be better if y'all think about accessibility for your data visualizations from the very beginning, rather than trying to retroactively add in accessibility at the end. And this will help not just people with low vision, with learning disabilities, whatever their reason might be. It will help your entire audience to more effectively see what you are trying to communicate. So one of the things that you'll want to think about first is whether a data visualization is even necessary. It could be that your data is too complex to represent visually. And so it might be better just to present it in a table or a spreadsheet and give it to your audience. But if you do determine that a data visualization is going to be a good tool for you to use, you'll want to think about the data literacy of your audience. If you are presenting to a room full of freshman students, they're new to college, they're new to your field, you'll probably want to use common visualization types that they have seen before and are familiar with. Otherwise, your data visualization may not do as much good as you think it is doing. But if you are presenting at a conference to your peers, these are folks who know the jargon, they know the shorthand, they're more familiar with complex visualization types, then using those might actually make your data visualization more accessible. One of the things that you'll want to think about as you're getting started is adding text elements to your visualization. It's not just about the visual. You will still want to describe what your visualization is doing. So make sure to include a title, include a sentence or two, just really brief about what your data visualization is and, an important concept related to the data. Direct labeling refers to putting a text element right next to a graphic element. So think of, a little number right next to the wedge of a pie graph. And then a legend is also important. It doesn't do any good to, have a beautiful chart or bar graph if nobody knows what it means. Colors. I think we all get really excited when choosing colors. One of the things that you'll want to think about first is whether you even need to use color in your data visualization. If you are creating, a bar graph of the number of faculty and staff members who attended Professional Development Day over the last 5 years, you probably don't need to make every bar in your graph a different color of the rainbow. It would look amazing, but it would confuse people. So you might want to keep that all one standard color. However, if you are splitting faculty versus staff who attended Professional Development Day, then, choosing your nice university gold for the staff and university blue for faculty and keeping that consistent across your chart may actually be really helpful. And that feeds into this idea of not reusing colors unless the data is linked. If you have a pie chart and, two wedges across from the pie chart both have the same color, people might think that they are linked in some way, even if you don't mean them to be. And you'll also want to consider the social meaning of your colors. You might have a trend line with a little green line going upwards and someone who just looks at your data visualization and ignores the title and ignores the description that you have very carefully placed there, they might see that and think, okay, this is a good thing. It's a green line going upwards. That's good. But you might be describing something like, the increase in pollution in the air in Dallas, Texas over the last 20 years. Maybe you don't want to use a green trend line. And another thing to think about with color is using high contrast colors. A great tool for that is the color contrast analyzer available through color.adobe.com. You can enter the hex codes for the colors that you have chosen, and it will give you a score about the contrast ratio. And so it will tell you whether it is accessible to folks with low vision. And it will tell you whether it's accessible, in small font, in large font, in graphic elements, because those might be different for some color combinations. And one of the final things you'll want to think about are other ways to differentiate your data. Screens are nice because we can show all of the pretty colors, and that's great. But there might be situations in which, your material needs to be printed and it can only be printed in black and white, like for a book, or maybe you are sending your students a visualization that you want them to print out, and a student is going to say, okay, I'm going to print black and white because that's cheaper. So think of other ways that you can differentiate your data in your visualization. So consider using solid borders, thin breaks, maybe a pattern. If you're using a line graph, then dashes or data point styles can also be really useful. Okay, so that's it for the accessibility portion. I am going to take you through signing into Adobe Creative Cloud, just in case you've never done it before. It's really quick. You'll go to adobe.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, click sign in. And when you get to this new screen, you're going to enter your TAMUC email and click continue. That will take you to single sign-on, and you will enter your credentials and hit login. If you have any issues with that, then a site will be who you'll want to contact. We also do have an Adobe page on the main TAMUC website that has a list of FAQs that could be helpful. So this is the Adobe home screen. There is a process for installing Creative Cloud to your computer and getting things like Illustrator, which we will be setting up next, installed. If you don't have that installed yet, it's okay. You can follow along and just this presentation and get it installed later. So we're going to be using Adobe Express, and it is not time for questions. It is time to get into Adobe Express. Okay, so this is Adobe Express. There's a whole bunch that you can do here, which we're not going to go through every single thing because this is about data visualization, not a general Adobe Express tutorial. You will want to click on document. I am going to show you how to create a slide for a presentation, and we're going to keep it pretty simple. So if you click on document and scroll down, you will see that there is an option for presentation. Okay, if you've never been in Adobe Express before, up here, you can change the title of your thing that you are working on. On the left-hand side, there is a navigation bar, and then there is kind of this sidebar where you can edit whatever you are currently working on. You do not have to worry about saving this. It's in the cloud. Adobe Express does it automatically, and I already have a document named that, so I'm going to create a different name. So there are templates that you can choose from in here, and you can steal their colors, steal their fonts. Something that I've noticed is that the data visualization tools in Adobe Express are really new, so they're not necessarily embedded in these templates, so you'd still have to pull in your visualization, which is fine. We're not going to start with a template because we're not really as much worried about, how it looks in the colors. I just want to show you how to use the tool today. So we're going to keep our white background. We are going to go ahead and add a title. Over on the navigation bar, you can click on text, and There's a big purple button that says add your text. So my visualization today is going to be actually some real data that I gathered from my time working in the archives. So we are going to show the types of patrons who used the archives in fiscal year 2022. So I'm going to name my chart that. I really like this dynamic text layout because it lets me just make the box the size that I want and it adjusts the text automatically for that. You can use this drop down to change your font. And I'll go ahead and choose that one. And then if you scroll down a little bit here in fill, you can change the color of your font. So now that I have that done, I will show you where to find the graphs and charts that you can use. So if you scroll down on the navigation bar and click on elements, and then there's this little arrow up at the top. If you scroll all the way to the right and click on charts, it will show you all of the charts that you can choose from. They have added a lot of charts since I started preparing this presentation. So we're going to keep it simple with a pie chart, but they've added a lot. And so if you're looking for these in the future, you may find more that you can use. Okay, so here is our pie chart. If you ever get lost in here or you can't figure out, you want to be able to edit the text again, select the thing that you want to work on, and that sidebar will pop up with what edits you can make. But I know sometimes clicking around, it can disappear and then reappear. So I am going to go ahead and add my data. There is a column here where you can add your labels and then your values. I am not going to attempt to talk and type those out because otherwise I will misspell them. I'm not guaranteeing that I won't misspell them not talking, but. So notice as I did that, the pie chart automatically updated with the size of the wedges, with the text at the bottom, and with the numbers. So that's the really great thing about Express is that yes, Anderson. Oh, yes. Okay, so the question in the chat is actually right what I was about to get to. So good question. They were asking about whether there's a predetermined number of data points in each chart. So if, this pie chart has 4, can you only have 4 data points? No. So if you click on it and you scroll down, we're actually going to add another data point because they're correct. I need more than 4. I need 5. So if you click on add item here, it will allow you to add more slices to your pie. I don't know if there's a limit. If somebody asks that question, please don't, because I don't know the answer. Anderson said that he got to 7, so. And he wasn't stopped. So we probably do more. So I have entered my new piece of data. Before that, this pie chart was looking pretty good, had some contrast between the colors, and was looking pretty nice. But now that I have added another wedge, it has automatically populated with a new color. And unfortunately, that color is very similar to the one for alumni. And even for me, who has fairly okay vision, not super accessible. I would bet if I printed this, that wedge would be one wedge. So there's a couple of ways that you can fix that. One thing you can do is you can rearrange the wedges of this pie chart. So I can say, okay, alumni, I want you to move to the row above. And now it has separated those 2 wedges. Now they still have the same color. So as we talked about before, folks might think that they are somehow related or linked. So I actually don't like that solution. Going to move it back. And you can change the color by clicking on the color swatch right next to the label, and you can change it there. I'm going to choose something totally different. Okay, so that's looking better. I have kind of a weird color in there, but it's okay. You can, of course, change your font just like you did for the title that you created. I'm going to use something readable. And you can change the font size, make it larger, make it smaller. You can also change the size of your pie chart automatically just by moving that box, so you can kind of adjust it to fit your page. So if you want to, you can make more customizations to this pie chart. If you click on the toolbar by chart type, Anderson has another question. Yes, so this person is asking whether there is any advantages to using Adobe products as opposed to something like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. Yes and no. It may depend on the visualization type that you are trying to do. It might be easier to do it in Excel for you. Express is great if you are creating kind of a cohesive presentation that you want to look very similar. You have some simple visualizations that you are trying to create. Adobe Illustrator is going to have much more complex things that you can do, and it's going to have interesting ways that you can make the visualizations different and like fun. Ashley will talk about that a little bit. Somebody's asking whether the image can go beyond the page. So in Express, I think if you're talking about resizing it, it will go beyond the page, but then when you export it, I'm thinking it won't have anything beyond the page. Illustrator is a little bit different because it has artboards and lots of ways to export. So in that case, the answer might be yes. Yes, yeah, and in both of these, you can change the size of your page. So if you get in here and you start working on your visualization, you're like, wow, I really chose the wrong document size, then you are able to resize it. And so there's actually this little resize button right here. And we have a question in the room. Right. Yeah. So the person in the room wants to know if they already have some data in Excel, whether it is possible to import. And we will be getting to that. It is not possible in Express. You will have to retype your data. Again, Express is really great for kind of simple data visualizations. However, Illustrator does allow you to import. There are some quirks with that, which Ashley will be talking about. Yes, and folks in the chat, did that answer your questions? If not, maybe you can rephrase it and Anderson will ask it again. Okay, actually, I'll hold on a second. Anything in the chat, Anderson? Not yet. Okay. Well, if that didn't answer your question, feel free to rephrase it and we will come back to it. One of the other things that you can do with your chart type is you can customize it even a little bit more in Express. And there is a toolbar up by chart type. And if you click on that, there's a couple of things that you can change. You can change the values from numbers to percentages, and that will automatically update for you. You don't have to go through and figure out percentages or how to change them. So that's one of the changes that you can make. You can also add direct labeling. So that option will pull your numbers from the legend up next to the wedge of the pie graph. This is one of the places where Adobe Express is maybe not as great because you can't have it in both places. It's just automatically going to pull it and say, oh, you don't want it in the legend. You only want it up by your pie graph. You can also turn off your legend, and then that will move your text labels up close to your pie chart. And unfortunately, if I make this a little bit bigger, this is another quirk of Express where it's really great because it updates automatically, but you can see that we have lost the text label for one of our wedges. And there's a couple of ways that we could work on bringing that back. We could rearrange these rows as we did earlier, and that will bring back the text label for that wedge. We can also make the font size smaller. If you have a lot of wedges, you're probably going to lose some of your text. So that's where something like Illustrator may be a little bit better for you to use. I am going to turn the legend back on because that is just much, much better in my opinion. And one of the last things that we can do is that depending on the chart type that you have chosen, you also have the ability to totally change your chart type automatically. So on this sidebar under chart type, if we scroll, you can do view all, and that will show all of the different options that you have to change this. So I can make this into a donut chart and change the labeling as well, or I can make it into a bar graph. And if you choose a different visualization type, then there will be other ones that match those. And these also you can adjust the sizes on. So as I said, Adobe Express is really good if you have kind of simple data that you need, that you want it to look really nice, presentable. I think that Adobe Express does a really nice job of that. And you do have some things that will update automatically, such as when you change the color of one of your labels, the bars will automatically change. So it's a really simple process. However, there's not as much customization as you can make as if you used Adobe Illustrator, which is what my colleague Ashley will be showing you next.
All right. Thank you, Joe. So I am going to talk about Adobe Illustrator, and it has some quirks or frustrations with working with it. However, the advantage to it is that you're kind of only limited by your creativity and your skill level. So, but while I am going to show you extremely simple charts, I do want you to know that you can do much more, and I'll kind of point out some things while we're going through. One thing that I did want to point out real quick is that you can always go to stock.adobe.com, and there's stock and images in here, but there's also templates. And if you just need an idea of what you would like, say a bar graph for your visualization, you can always look in here and just get some ideas. You can go ahead and license them, and some you can change. Some are you can't. You can get ideas. I'm not the most creative person, but if I see something, I'm like, hey, I can probably recreate that. So if you find one that you really like and you're like, hey, I could use that, you could go to license if you want. And then for most of these, they are part of our Adobe account, and you can download it into your library, which I'm going to show you in Illustrator, where that will end up. Now I'm going to switch to Illustrator. So this is what Adobe Illustrator looks like when you open it. So you would just go to your big blue button here that says new file. There's two main different documents that you would probably work with the most, web and print. Now you can change and customize the size on all of them. You can make your own from scratch. The main difference between web and print is the color mode. So if you can see here for web, it's going to be RGB color instead of ink. It's light that it's working with, so it's slightly different. And then print is the opposite. It's CMYK. So it just kind of depends. Are you going to print it, or is it going to be on your screen? That's where you would want to start. I'm going to go ahead and start with web and open a new document. So there, just to kind of introduce you to Illustrator in case you've never used it before, there are two main selector tools. There's your selection tool, which is right here, the black arrow, I guess you could call it. And then there's the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow right here. Now, The easiest thing to do, I think, is to use the keyboard shortcuts to go back and forth. So the direct selection is A, see how it changed color, and then the selection tool, the black one, is V. And do end up using that quite a bit if you're a keyboard shortcut person. We're going to go here. These are our tools, and there are many more of them hiding here. So we're going to go here and we're going to do bar graph, which you can use the keyboard shortcut of J. I don't know why it's J. So you kind of make it the size that you want. I'm going to make it large, and it opens this right here. This is the data panel. So you can import data. So if you have something already in Excel, this is where you could import it. It says it'll take an Excel file. I think that's a lie. However, I have not tried it since I did update the other day, and I should have. I apologize. But I could not get it to work quite right. Instead, I have it in text. So you bring your text in. If you can see, nothing changed here, right? So you just need to click here, the little arrow for apply, and then it'll update. Now, if you can tell right here from my labels, I have spelled out 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. These actually are the years, but if I put in 2018, it's going to put that on the bar graph as a bar and not as the label on the x-axis. It's one of those fun, frustrating quirks. Also, if I want to change this and I don't want these labels down here, I would like a legend. I would just transpose and then hit apply. And my legend's over here. It's kind of off the screen a little bit, but that's where it is. I'm going to transpose that back. And now I'm going to go ahead and close the data panel. It is not gone forever. I promise you, you can always get back to it. When my very first graph, I wanted to change something, and it took me a minute to find that panel because, first of all, I didn't know what it was called. So I didn't even know what to put in the help, but I'm going to show you. So if you go to object and you'll go almost to the bottom. And if you have a bigger monitor, you'll be able to see it but it is here, I promise. There it is, graph. And then you go to data. So there it is. You can make changes there. In Illustrator with other Adobe products, if you want to get out of anything, you just Control Z or Command Z if you have a Mac. And it will eventually go. It's being slow, but it will. So anyway, but what I did to open anything with the graph, I went to object up here, and then I had to scroll pretty far down because the monitor's small. On a larger monitor, you'll be able to see it. Excuse me. And then go to graph and then data. That opens this. Right here is the import, and it says import data. And I already had a text file ready. I recommend a text file. Also, when you start out, if you want starting out more simple, and then you can update from there. You would just hit apply for that to go. But like I said, there are some issues with working with the data panel, and that is where, see how I spelled out 18 instead of putting in 2018 for 2018, the year. Anderson asked if there was a way to convert an Excel worksheet data right into a text file. There are, you can convert it. I would copy and paste. So that copy and paste works well. Yeah, I did not try a CSV because when Excel didn't work, I had to move on. But I think it's supposed to. And so will it? I don't know. Like I said, there are definitely some quirks to it. One of which is if you've used Illustrator at all, you may want to use your selection tool to highlight and then try to to resize the graph, and that actually does not work. So there is a scale tool, and so you would just use right here, the scale tool, and then I'm just going to click my mouse and drag, and then I can scale it up and down. So I can't resize or scale with the selection tool, but I can with the scale tool. So right now, I'm going to show that you can change the look of the bar graph, which is one of the advantages to using Illustrator, and you can make these look however you want. If you're talking about how many teddy bears were sold in the United States over multiple years, you could draw a teddy bear and use teddy bears either stacked on top of each other or smaller or larger to show in your graph. It's really fun. I'm going to show you a very simple. So I'm just going to use the direct selection tool and copy and paste. So I'm literally just Control C. I'm going to come over here, Control. I'm just going to move it off my artboard just to give it a little space. There's no reason. So I'm going to show you a couple of different things. First of all, we would like the data label to be on top. For that, you would use the text tool. So it's over here in your tool panel, it's the T, or on your keyboard, you can hit T, which makes more sense than others. I'm going to change it to one of our university fonts and make it larger so we can see it. This is just a placeholder, and you're gonna see what I mean here in a second. So I'm gonna make that a little larger. There we go. Okay, now I would like just to show you that you can change the look of these columns, these bars. I'm gonna go ahead and round the corners. Just simple. I need to select both, so I use the selection tool, and I'm gonna drag my mouse across both of them. I'm going to check my notes so that I don't click around incorrectly. You go to Object, to Graph, Design, like that. And we're going to hit New Design. You can rename it if you want. If you want several different ones, you make the one that looks like a teddy bear. You can name that one Teddy Bear. And then OK. Now I have a new design. So what I would like to do is kind of come back over here in Illustrator to recenter your artboard. You can hit Control-0 and it'll do that. You can also scroll by holding down the Alt and just scrolling on the mouse. If you want to just move it, you can hold the space bar and then move the mouse like that. Under the direct selection tool, there's more tools. So I'm just holding down the mouse and it gives me more options. I want the group selection tool. So what it's going to do, I'm going to click one of these, and then I'm going to click again, and it's going to go ahead and select all of them. So then what I want to do is make all of these look like my new design that I created. So I'm going back to Graph under Object and then Column, and I'm going to choose that new design. I'm going to go ahead and keep it vertically scaled, but there's different ways you can scale. And then to me, it's just what you chose to make your column design look like, and then what you're trying to represent is which one of these column types you would choose. Just going to do vertically scaled. Okay, and see how it changed all of them, and it put the label at the top. It does do this interesting thing where now this is actually the top of the bar instead of this. So it doesn't quite look right. I know there are ways to fix it. I've had to just kind of play with it. Now I want to go back to direct selection tool. I'm going to change these labels. You can just click on it and I can type whatever I want here. Also, these you can change. I can change the font. I can change the colors, how it looks. One thing that you can do is over here in your properties panel, you can go ahead and go to graph type. And I can even change the type from here. I could, if I want a pie chart instead, I can change where the values are. Add a drop shadow, go ahead and add the legend. There's different options. This is the one that I use the most. And here is where it changes your Y value. And so you would just override. And so right now my minimum is 0. I don't need it that small. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to 500. Keep it at 1,000, that's fine. And then say I want 10 divisions instead of 5. And it changes. See, now it starts at 500. There's more divisions between, and it updated the chart. Is there any questions so far on any of that? Okay, there's not in chat. Earlier, I made everything smaller to fit on the smaller monitor, and it's harder for me to see. Okay. Over here in the properties panel, and this is where the libraries are. And remember a while ago I said you could license one of those graphs. It would end up here, kind of near the bottom. See, I have some things already in there. I'm gonna go ahead and add a couple swatches. That I'm going to use for the next graph. Okay, just as Joe showed you in Express, I want to show you how to make a pie chart in Illustrator. So it's right here, and you do it the same way. Click on it and then make it kind of the size that you want. It brings up the data panel again. I'm going to go ahead and import my text file, and then you're going to see that this one says wrong. It's because I'm trying to trick you, but not really. I just wanted you to see. This will not work. So it doesn't think there are any numbers there because there are the currency symbol and the commas. So you'd have to take all of that out before it would recognize it as a number. So it's just one of those fun things that you learn, hopefully not the hard way like I did. Now we're going to import the one that's not wrong. So this one looks a lot more simplified. It is. So I'm going to go ahead and hit, I want one pie chart using this data. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the apply. And that is not what I was expecting, correct? So it is something you could want. Maybe that is what you want your visualization to look like. It could work. However, it's not what I was going for. So I would just transpose the columns and rows, hit apply. That looks more like what we were probably going for. I'm going to go ahead and close. I'm going to go ahead and select this. Right now, this is a chart, a graph. However, I want to do some things to it. I want to make it into a donut graph instead, and I want to make it just for fun. I would like to make it 3D. So I have everything selected with the selection tool, and I'm just going to hit on my keyboard, and I did this wrong yesterday in my practice, but Control-Shift-G will ungroup, and it'll say, are you sure? Because it's not going to be a graph anymore. And I'm going to be like, yes, I am very sure. So you actually will hit that a few times just to make sure everything's all ungrouped. So now I don't have a graph necessarily, but so I can move the wedges out if I want. I'm going to hit Control-Z to put that back. But I wanted to make a donut. So I'm going to go over here, and it looks like a square or a rectangle. I don't want that. So I'm going to hold down the mouse. I'm going to go to the ellipse, and I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to hold Shift to make it a perfect circle. And try to get that as centered as I can. I don't always. Very simply, if I want to make it look like a donut, I could go ahead and make that the same color as my background, which right now the background looks white. However, if you look at the transparency grid, which is Control-Shift-D, you'll see that my background is not white. My background is transparent. So I want this to be transparent as well. So you can do it that way if you want, but if you have a blue background, you're going to have a white circle very noticeable in the middle and not a blue circle. So I'm going to select all of this, and I'm going to actually make it go away essentially. So I selected everything. I'm going to go here to the shape builder, and I'm going to take this out. Do that by holding Alt and then taking these little pieces out. So now I have a donut. See, it's transparent in the middle. So I would like to change the color of it. So I'm going to select one of these, and I want this one to change at the same time. So this one is this one. I could select both of them by holding Shift. That'll work. Or I can go here, and I can go to Select, Same, and then Fill Color. And here it'll change both of them at the same time. And now also you can see I can make the stroke larger if I want. I can do that. Okay, so I'm going to select this. I still would like to make it 3D if I have time, Anderson. And then I go to Effect, 3D and Materials, Extrude and Bevel. I'm going to extrude. You can Okay, so what it did is it broke it apart because I forgot to group it first. So if you want it to look whole and not all broken apart, you would group those pieces back together. So I apologize. I got off on my notes a little bit. I even have it circled, Control G to group, but I did not do it. Anyway, this is what it looks like when each piece is individually in 3 dimensions. Okay, the last thing I do want to show you is we talked about accessibility in the beginning. I want to bring that back around. So in Illustrator, you can actually view it as if you had a color blindness. So if you go to View, Proof Setup, and then there's 2 different options. There's one, and then there's the other. And see, these 2 right here are very similar and they're beside each other. So you may want to go and pick a different color to make it contrast even more than it does. To turn that off, you would just go to View and then Proof Colors. That takes you back to what it looks like. So you'd want to change your gray or your pink to a different, higher contrasting color and then check again. That is what I have. Can I go ahead and stop sharing? We don't need to share anymore, right? Does anybody in the chat have questions? Anybody in the room have a question?
Somebody earlier had asked about the advantages to using Express and Illustrator, which we talked about them a little bit. One of the things about Illustrator is that will export as a vector image if you want it to. And that means that you can scale it up as large as you need it, and it won't become pixelated, which I know that I have created different visualizations, sometimes in PowerPoint or Word, and then I try and save that as an image and put it in something else, and it looks terrible. And so that would be one of the advantages. And again, you know, it could be that a visualization in Excel or Word or PowerPoint is exactly what you need, and that's good. But these are just some additional options.
We're gonna try to find a place to put the list of keyboard shortcuts, because yes, I do have a document that has them on. So yeah, and it's what I use all the time because finding all those tools, it's actually easier to remember the shortcuts. And like the scale tool, I got nervous and I couldn't remember where it was in the toolbar, so I hit S. Okay, so just that we'll put a list of keyboard shortcuts somewhere where people can find them. Okay, any more questions in the chat? If not, probably gonna stop recording.